Over the past 2 years, Sweet Baby Inc. has become desperate to get gamers to not pay attention to them anymore. And even though there were a few weeks where we were all talking about Collective Shout not paying attention to SBI, it wasn't enough for us to forget about them completely. And now they're completely overhauling their website. They're trying to rebrand their image, and it's not going to work. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community and my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, people like me and you are never going to forget about Sweet Baby Inc.'s existence, even though they would love for that to happen. Kim Belair has said in the past that she wants to exist in the shadows, and she doesn't want people paying attention to what this company is doing because they know that they are really just grifting off this industry, and gamers are not willing to stay silent on that. We will call these people out every single day if that's what it takes to get our point across. Now, they had previously wiped their website. They had tried to take a lot of the information, like the developers they have off of it, the companies that they've worked with, and the games that they are helping on off their webpage to try to kill some of the backlash. They hoped that by making it harder for people to find what games they'd worked on, they wouldn't be as heavily criticized and those games wouldn't be boycotted, but that hasn't worked. Even games like Winter Burrow are facing major backlash, and now it looks like in a little over a year, Sweet Baby Inc. has completely overhauled their website to eliminate most of their pro-DEI verbiage. Now, we know that this is what cultural Marxists do. They take a certain set of words and then they stop using them, and then they either reword the same exact programs and initiatives. They will try to confuse people by changing those terms, and it really all just means the same thing. But they want to try to convince you that what they're doing is really different and they're acting differently, but we know that that is not the case. And unfortunately, right, Sweet Baby Inc. is not going to go away anytime soon, and they make a lot of money off of large companies, and so what are they going to do? They're going to try to convince you that they've changed even though they haven't. So when DEI Detected emerged in 2024, it was no secret that not only was SBI pushing diversity, equity, and inclusion narratives in video games, but they were bragging about it. We're part of an inclusive and knowledgeable community of diverse consultants able to cover a wide range of cultural and sensitivity topics. Our approach leads with the creation of joy in marginalized players. Today, most of SBI's website is gutted. There are no tabs for projects, approach, or outreach that were visible in 2024. In fact, they don't even offer a newsletter anymore, but the internet never forgets. No matter what their team says, the company always puts diversity at the forefront of its projects. And as I always say, diversity in entertainment is very important, but at the same time, so is good storytelling, so are good characters, so are good products. And if you're just saying, oh, because it's diverse, that makes it good, that's a straight up lie. You have to have these other elements that are really high quality along with diverse characters. If a character is diverse because that's just the best character to fit with the story, that's perfectly fine. But if you're just having, 50% of your cast be super diverse in order to check off boxes on a checklist, yeah, that's not good, and people will reject that every single time. Our mission is to tell better, more empathetic stories while diversifying and enriching the video games industry, which is so funny because the video game industry has always been diverse. There's always been women and people of color and people of different sexualities that are part of this industry, but they have to ignore that in order to push their narrative now. So, other services included cultural consultation, sensitivity and inclusivity reading, risk and opportunities assessment. Included on their outreach page, SBI positioned itself as being dedicated to fostering new talent in the gaming industry, along with providing resources. The company said it can get the industry where it needs to be by developing diverse talent and hilariously transparent industry dialogue. The company also listed portfolio reviews, mentorships, and workshops as being available to the right person. Under a small baby Q&A section, one question was answered by a narrative designer and an inclusion editor. Terms like diversity and representation were rampant on the site, especially on the approach page, where an entire section was dedicated to representation. It previously had said, oh, baby Q&As and how they have podcasts and external resources and how to prepare a great portfolio. But as time has gone on and they have erased all of these different things from their website, it really seems like they are trying their best to erase their past and who they were, even though they're not changing internally. They're still doing all of this. They're just not using the same terminology and they're not putting it on display for the world to see. It really does come across as like a major rebranding, but it's not going to work for them. The name Sweet Baby Inc. is now tarnished. And sure, while there might be some companies that will still work with them in the future, it's going to be significantly less than would have 2 or 3 years ago. And I don't think that gamers are going to magically start accepting the products that they're working on, because it's clear that all of these games do poorly, either critically, commercially, it doesn't matter. In some way, they are a letdown. Alan Wake 2 barely made its money back this year. Battle Shapers, a game that nobody's talking about anymore. Breeze, nobody's talking about it anymore. Spider-Man 2 completely disappointed people compared to the first game. South of Midnight was a letdown. We were talking about game after game after game that either doesn't make money, doesn't get good scores, or instantly is dead on arrival. It says for major studio games like Alan Wake 2, SBI said it worked on character arc, voices, and even provided a sensitivity reading. For God of War Ragnarok, the company said it worked on narrative and character consultation with a focus on representation. For others, SBI cited narrative direction and even world building, implying a heavy hand in the production. Kill the Justice League, which was of course a massive failure, lost over $250 million, may I add, actually allowed SBI to do its banter and cutscenes. For one game called Lost Your Marbles, SBI said it did the full game development, and very rarely is a DEI consultation company willing to admit what it does. Typically, when these types of consultations are brought up, the narrative destroyers deny having any significant input and chalk up criticisms to generic forms of hate. This happens almost uniformly across the industry, and it's just so sad that these people have gotten so much money and so much attention from the large companies within this industry, but I don't think it's going to stay that way forever. So while Sweet Baby Inc. is hiding, of course, some of the terminology they've used in the past, they're almost trying to rebrand themselves. Gamers are never going to forget, and it's so important that with every move they make, we call it out because they deserve to be heavily criticized. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this important and informative, make sure to give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.